amounts should be about as follows. A family consisting of 2 persons whose income is $100 a month should manage to set aside at least $10 or $12 a month for the savings account. The cost of shelter or rent should not exceed $25 or $30 a month. Food costs should average about $25 to $30. Clothing should be kept within an expenditure of $15 to $20 a month. Recreation and incidentals should be kept down to about $8 to $10 a month. A family whose income is $100 a month, should that income be increased to $125, ought to save at least $20 of the amount. A family of 2 persons whose income is $150 a month should budget their funds about as follows. Savings $25, shelter or rent $35 to $40, food $35 to $40, clothes $20 to $30, recreation $10 to $15. On a salary of $200 a month, the budget should be savings $50, shelter or rent $40 to $50, food $35 to $45, clothes $30 to $35, recreation $15 to $20. A family of 2 on a salary or income of $300 a month should apportion the income about thus. Savings $55 to $65, shelter or rent $45 to $60, food $45 to $60, clothes $35 to $45, recreation and education $50 to $75. Some might argue that a family of 2 making a salary of $300 a month might live just as cheaply as one making but $100 or $125. However, this is not quite correct, because one who has the ability to earn $300 a month must as a rule associate with people who make better appearances and more entertainment necessary. A single man earning $100, $150, or $300 a month should save considerably more than a man with a family could save on the same amounts. As a rule, a single man who has no dependents and who is not in debt should live on a budget of $50 a month for room and food, and not to exceed $30 a month for clothes and perhaps $10 for recreation. These amounts might be slightly increased by one who earned from $150 to $300 a month. A boy who lives away from home and whose weekly income is only $20 should save $5 of the amount. The remainder should cover cost of food, room, and clothes. A girl living away from home on the same income would require a slightly larger allowance for clothes, as women's wearing apparel is more costly than men's, and it is generally imperative that women watch more closely than men their personal appearance. A family of 3 will be able to save considerably less than the amounts which can be saved by a family of 2. With rare exceptions, however, such as cases where the family is involved in debt which must be absorbed out of the monthly income, any family can save at least 5% of the gross income. It is a common practice today for families to purchase automobiles on monthly payments which involve too great an expenditure compared to their income. A man with a Ford income has no business purchasing a Studebaker car. He should curb his desires and content himself with a Ford. Many single men spend their entire incomes and often go into debt besides because they maintain automobiles out of keeping with their incomes. This common practice is fatal to success as far as financial independence may be considered a part of success in thousands of instances. The installment plan of buying has become so common, and it is so easy to purchase practically anything one desires, that the tendency to spend out of proportion to one's income is rapidly increasing. This tendency must be curbed by the person who has made up his mind to gain financial independence. It can be done by anyone who is willing to try. Another evil, which is both an evil and a blessing, is the fact that this country is so very prosperous that money comes easily, and if not watched, it goes still more easily. Since the beginning of the World War, there has been a steady demand for practically everything manufactured in the United States. And this condition of prosperity has caused people to lapse into a state of careless, unjustified spending. There is no virtue in keeping up with the pace set by neighbors, when this means sacrifice of the habit of saving a regular part of one's income. It is far better in the long run to be considered a bit behind the times than it is to go along through youth, into the days of maturity, and finally into old age, without having formed the habit of systematic saving. It is better to sacrifice during the age of youthfulness than it is to be compelled to do so during the age of maturity, as all who have not developed the habit of saving generally have to do. There is nothing quite so humiliating that carries such great agony and suffering as poverty in old age, when personal services are no longer marketable and one must turn to relatives or to charitable institutions for existence. A budget system should be maintained by every person, both the married and the single. But no budget system will work out if the person trying to keep it lacks the courage to cut expenses on such items as those of entertainment and recreation. If you feel so weak in willpower that you think it necessary to keep up with the Smiths with whom you associate socially and whose income is greater than your own, or who spend all of their income foolishly, then no budget system can be of service to you. Forming the savings habit means that, to some extent at least, you must seclude yourself from all except a well-selected group of friends who enjoy you without elaborate entertaining on your part. To admit that you lack the courage to trim down your expenditures so that you can save money, even if only a small amount, is the equivalent of admitting at the same time a lack of the sort of character which leads to success. It has been proved, times too numerous to be mentioned, that people who have formed the habit of saving money are always given preference in positions of responsibility. Therefore, the saving of money not only adds advantages in the nature of preferred employment and a larger bank account, but it also increases the actual earning capacity. Any businessman will prefer to employ a person who saves money regularly, not because of the mere fact that such a person saves money, but because of the characteristics possessed by such a person which make him or her more efficient. Many firms will not employ a man or a woman who does not save money. It should be a common practice for all business houses to require all employees to save money. This would be a blessing to thousands of people who would not otherwise have the willpower to form the savings habit. Henry Ford has gone a very long way, perhaps as far as is expedient, to induce his employees not only to save their money, but to spend what they do spend wisely, and to live sanely and economically. The man who induces his employees to form the habit of saving is a practical philanthropist. All salesmen will do well to remember that no one wants anything that someone else is trying to get rid of. Think well before you speak, because your words may plant the seed of either success or failure in the mind of some other person. I am thankful that I was born poor, that I did not come into this world burdened by the whims of wealthy parents with a bag of gold around my neck. Fortunate is the person who has learned that the most certain way to get is to first give through some sort of useful service. Opportunities that come to those who have saved money. A few years ago, a young man came to Philadelphia from the farming district of Pennsylvania and went to work in a printing plant. One of his fellow workmen owned some shares in a building and loan company and had formed the habit of saving $5 a week through this association. This young man was influenced by his associate to open an account with the building and loan company. At the end of 3 years, he had saved $900. The printing plant for which he worked got into financial difficulty and was about to fail. He came to the rescue with his $900, which he had saved in small amounts, and in return was given a half interest in the business. By inaugurating a system of close economy, he helped the business to pay off its indebtedness, and today he is drawing out of it as his half of the profits a little better than $25,000 a year. This opportunity never would have come, or if it had, he would not have been prepared to embrace it had he not formed the habit of saving money. When the Ford automobile was perfected during the early days of its existence, Henry Ford needed capital to promote the manufacture and sale of his product. He turned to a few friends who had saved up a few $1,000s, one of whom was Senator Couzens. These friends came to his rescue and put in a few $1,000s with him and later drew out millions of dollars in profits. When Woolworth first started his 5 and 10 cent store plan, he had no capital, but he turned to a few friends who had saved, by the closest sort of economy and great sacrifice, a few $1,000s. These friends staked him, and later they were paid back hundreds of thousands of dollars in profits. Van Heusen, of soft collar fame, conceived the idea of producing a semi-soft collar for men. His idea was sound, but he had not a cent to promote it. He turned to a few friends who had only a few $100s who gave him a start, and the collar made each of them wealthy. The man who started the El Producto cigar business had but little capital, and what they did have was money they had saved from their small earnings as cigar makers. They had a good idea and knew how to make a good cigar, but the idea would have died abornin had they not saved a little money. With their meager savings, they launched the cigar, and a few years later they sold out their business to the American Tobacco Company for $8 million. Back of practically every great fortune, one may find as its beginning a well-developed habit of saving money. John D. Rockefeller was an ordinary bookkeeper. He conceived the idea of developing the oil business, which was then not even considered a business. He needed capital, and because he had developed the habit of saving, and had thereby proved that he could conserve the funds of other people, he had no difficulty in borrowing what money he needed. It may be truthfully stated that the real basis of the Rockefeller fortune is the habit of saving money which Mr. Rockefeller developed while working as a bookkeeper at a salary of $40 a month. James J. Hill was a poor young man working as a telegrapher at a salary of $30 a month. He conceived the idea of the Great Northern Railway system, but his idea was out of proportion to his ability to finance. However, he had formed the habit of saving money, and on the meager salary of $30 a month had saved enough to enable him to pay his expenses on a trip to Chicago, where he interested capitalists in financing his plan. The fact that he himself had saved money on a small salary was considered good evidence that he would be a safe man to trust with other people's money. Most businessmen will not trust another man with their money unless he has demonstrated his ability to take care of his own and use it wisely. The test, while it is often embarrassing to those who have not formed the habit of saving, is a very practical one. A young man who worked in a printing plant in the city of Chicago wanted to open a small print shop and go into business for himself. He went to a printing supply house manager and made known his wants, saying he desired credit for a printing press and some type and other small equipment. The first question asked by the manager was, "Have you saved any money of your own?" He had. Out of his salary of $30 a week, he had saved $15 a week regularly for nearly 4 years. He got the credit he wanted. Later on, he got more credit, until today he has built up one of the most successful printing plants in the city of Chicago. His name is George B. Williams, and he is well known, as are also the facts here stated, to the author of this course. Many years after this incident, the author of this course became acquainted with Mr. Williams, and at the end of the war in 1918, the author went to Mr. Williams and asked for credit amounting to many thousands of dollars for the purpose of publishing the Golden Rule magazine. The first question asked was, "Have you formed the habit of saving money?" Despite the fact that all the money I had saved was lost in the war, the mere fact that I had actually formed the savings habit was the real basis on which I got credit for upward of $30,000. There are opportunities on every corner, but they exist only for those who have ready money, or who can command money because they have formed the habit of saving, and develop the other characteristics which go with the formation of the savings habit known by the general term of character. The late J.P. Morgan once said he would rather loan $1 million to a man of sound character, who had formed the habit of saving money, than he would $1,000 to a man without character, who was a spendthrift. Generally speaking, this is the attitude which the world takes toward all men who save money. It often happens that a small savings account of no more than $200 or $300 is sufficient to start one on the highway to financial independence. A few years ago, a young inventor invented a household article which was unique and practical. He was handicapped, as inventors so often are, because he did not have the money to market his invention. Moreover, not having formed the savings habit, he found it impossible to borrow money through banking sources. His roommate was a young machinist who had saved $200. He came to the inventor's aid with this small sum of money and had enough of the articles manufactured to give them a start. They went out and sold from house to house the first supply, then came back and had another supply made up, and so on, until they had accumulated, thanks to the thrift and savings ability of the roommate, a capital of $1,000. With this, plus some credit they secured, they bought the tools for manufacturing their own product. The young machinist sold his half-interest in the business 6 years later for $250,000. He never would have handled this much money during his entire life had he not formed the habit of saving, which enabled him to come to the rescue of his inventor friend. This case might be multiplied 1,000 times with but slight variation as to details, as it is fairly descriptive of the beginning of many great fortunes that have been made and are now in the making in the United States. It may seem like a sad, cruel fact, but it is a fact nonetheless that if you have no money and have not developed the habit of saving, you are out of luck as far as availing yourself of the opportunity to make money is concerned. It can do no harm to repeat, in fact it should be repeated over and over again, that the real start of nearly all fortunes, whether great or small, is the formation of the habit of saving money. Get this basic principle firmly founded in your mind and you will be well on the road toward financial independence. It is a sad sight to see a man, well along in years, who has sentenced himself to the wearisome treadmill of hard labor all the days of his life, because he has neglected forming the habit of saving money. Yet there are millions of such men living in the United States alone today. The greatest thing in life is freedom. There can be no real freedom without a reasonable degree of financial independence. It is a terrible thing to be compelled to be at a certain place, at a certain task, perhaps a task which one does not like, for a certain number of hours every working day of the week for a whole lifetime. In some ways this is the same as being in prison, since one's choice of action is always limited. It is really no better than being in prison with the privilege of a trustee, and in some ways it is even worse, because the man who is imprisoned has escaped the responsibility of providing a place to sleep, something to eat, and clothes to wear. The only hope of escape from this lifelong toil which curtails freedom is to form the habit of saving money and then live up to that habit, no matter how much sacrifice it may require. There is no other way out for millions of people, and unless you are one of the rare exceptions, this lesson and all these statements of fact are meant for you and apply to you. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for loan oft loses both itself and friend, and borrowing dulls the edge of husbandry. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. Shakespeare. Everything passes at par temporarily. Truth alone remains permanently. Love and justice are the real arbiters of all disputes. Give them a chance, and you will no longer want to defeat a brother sojourner by the wayside of life. The Law of Success, Lesson 5, Initiative and Leadership. When you do not know what to do or which way to turn, smile. This will relax your mind and let the sunshine of happiness into your soul. You can do it if you believe you can. Before you proceed to the mastery of this lesson, your attention is directed to the fact that there is perfect coordination of thought running throughout this course. You will observe that the entire 16 lessons harmonize and blend with each other, so that they constitute a perfect chain that has been built, link by link, out of the factors that enter into the development of power through organized effort. You will observe also that the same fundamental principles of applied psychology form the foundation of each of these 16 lessons, although different application is made of these principles in each of the lessons. This lesson, on initiative and leadership, follows the lesson on self-confidence, for the reason that no one could become an efficient leader or take the initiative in any great undertaking without belief in himself. Initiative and leadership are associated terms in this lesson for the reason that leadership is essential for the attainment of success, and initiative is the very foundation upon which this necessary quality of leadership is built. Initiative is as essential to success as a hub is essential to a wagon wheel. And what is initiative? It is that exceedingly rare quality that prompts, nay, impels a person to do that which ought to be done without being told to do it. Elbert Hubbard expressed himself on the subject of initiative in the words, "The world bestows its big prizes, both in money and honors, for one thing, and that is initiative." What is initiative? I'll tell you. It is doing the right thing without being told. But next to doing the right thing without being told is to do it when you are told once. That is to say, carry the message to Garcia. Those who can carry a message get high honors, but their pay is not always in proportion. Next, there are those who do the right thing when necessity kicks them from behind, and these get indifference instead of honors and a pittance for pay. This kind spend most of the time polishing a bench with a hard luck story. Then, still lower down in the scale than this, we have the fellow who will not do the right thing even when someone goes along to show him how and stays to see that he does it.